Hi everybody. Today is another episode of Toy Trains and Arduino, and today this episode is for everybody who's watched my videos and thought, holy crap, there's no way I'm doing that. So today we're going to take it back for beginners. We're going to create a little car that we can control with our phone, and you're not even going to have to do any programming. You're not even going to have to do any soldering. Can you believe it? So stay tuned, have some fun, create a car, and drive it around with your phone. Why not? All right, let's build a car we can control with our phone. We're going to talk about the prerequisites, and we're going to talk about getting the parts, and we'll have links to get all those parts. They are in the description. Then we're going to go through step-by-step wiring the circuit, putting on the motors and the roller, and then we'll load the software, and then we'll have a little fun playing with our car. The beauty is there's no soldering, no programming. This is an easy one. All right, so these are the things you need to do really before you can get started. There's so much of this information online already, I'm not repeating it here. Number one, first and foremost, for this to work, you do need an Android phone. An iPhone will not work. You need a computer, and we need to get the Arduino IDE on that. And I have instructions for doing that here in this link and in the description. So if you follow those carefully, you'll have the Arduino IDE on your computer in no time. And then the next thing is you'll have to add the ESP32 board manager to the Arduino IDE. And the instructions for that are included in this link here. Then you'll have to procure the parts. And as I said, I've got links to examples of the parts. You don't have to get exactly those parts at Amazon. On my GitHub page, you'll find all the software we need to run this. And we'll go through downloading that and getting that working on your phone and on your Arduino. All right, so the parts, we're going to need wheels. These are 360-degree servo motors, and they come with wheels. This is what I bought from Amazon. And then we're going to need a microcontroller, and what we're going to use is this tiny little ESP32C3, and there's a link to that. And we're going to power it with a off-the-shelf power bank. You know, it's this cute little pink one, comes with the cord installed, so all that's easy. And you'll need a breadboard, you'll need some wire, resistors, LEDs, and possibly some double stick tape, maybe not. And then you'll have to use a caster for your third wheel. So we got these wheels in back and a caster in the front. And then you could put under the caster a riser block, or you could omit it, doesn't matter. A tic-tac box is right about the right size for that. So I just want to say the way this car works is the microcontroller will move the wheels. And to turn one way, it turns the wheel on the side it wants to turn more slowly than the wheel on the other side, and that causes it to turn. So to turn the other way, then it turns the other wheel more slowly. So, and that's just how the whole car works. So here are the links to the parts and the prices when I last looked at this in 2024. Everything here comes from Amazon, except for the ESP32, which comes from the manufacturer. And you should be able to have no problem getting these parts. You can get this from Amazon. You see our total's around $40, which isn't bad at all for a car you get to control with your phone. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is do the wiring of a breadboard. And of course your breadboard, if you're unfamiliar with these, they have two sets of connected rows, if you look at it this way. Okay, so I've got all of these holes are connected together electrically, and then which is separate from the next row, which are connected electrically, which is separate for the next row, so on. And this is another set which is separate from that set. Then the power rails are the opposite. All these along the edge are connected together despite the spaces, and all these here next to that are connected together. So we use these as power rails for positive and negative, and we have to supply that positive and negative. Okay, so what we want to do before we do anything in wiring is just make sure we've got the right tools and parts. So go through that part list, make sure you have everything on that. In addition, tweezers will be really helpful, and a teeny tiny screwdriver. You could probably use the type that come with eyeglass repair kits. All right, so we know we're going to put this in the block so that 5 volt will be in the first row here. And this is going to be our power source to the motors. And so we need to wire that up, and we're going to wire that up to the power rail. And then we'll also need ground. And so before we even put this in, let's activate the power rails. Here is the wiring diagram we're going to use for the project. We're going to be wiring an ESP32C3 to 2 servo motors and 2 LEDs. We have 2 resistors, 330 ohm resistors, just to limit the current through the LEDs. And that's really all there is to it. We're going to go through it step by step. We're going to start with our breadboard and wire the power and ground rails. We know we're starting with the first row where the ESP32 is going to go, and that's 5 volt, and next to that is ground. So we can just go ahead and wire up those rails, and then we can put in wires that go over to the rails on the other side. So that's all done. While we're at it, we are going to go ahead and put in the ground wires for the LEDs, and then we'll go ahead and insert our ESP32 into the block. All right, so now we can put our ESP32 in here, being careful to keep to line up the pins to the holes. Make sure the very first pin is in the very first row. So then you have the very first pin in the very first row, and that part's done. Notice we have our antenna attached. It's easier to attach that before you put it in the breadboard, so I suggest you do that. And we can just move it out of the way whenever we want. We can, after we're done, fasten this antenna to the battery if we want, because this backing peels off and it's sticky in the back, and you could just leave it as I do, just flying in the wind. There's nothing wrong with that. It's an omnidirectional antenna. It doesn't need to be pointed any particular way. First thing we're going to do is start wiring up the green LED. The green LED is controlled by pin D10 on the ESP32. Then we'll go ahead and put in the wire for the red LED. That goes in D9, which is right next to D10. We're just going to let those wires dangle while we put in our LEDs and resistors. We're going to put in the green LED first. The long lead on the LED is going to point back toward the ESP32, and then also same with the red LED. And we're just going to put them all the way at the far end. Now we have 2 330 ohm resistors to install. We're going to put those resistors in so that one end is connected to the positive. Remember, that's the long lead of the LEDs. So each of them gets one. And then we'll connect those wires that are hanging loose to the other end of the resistor. Now we're going to connect the control wires for the servos, and we'll connect those to the ESP32. Servo 1 goes to D7. Servo 2 goes to D4. We'll use an orange wire for Servo 1 and a yellow wire for Servo 2. Then we'll go ahead and connect power from the rails to each servo. So we need 2 positives and 2 grounds that we'll connect. Now we're ready for final assembly. Okay, so really that's all the wiring, right? Because we're going to attach these motors and then just plug them in here. And then this thing will go. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to put a spacer block on here and a caster. All right, again, this is all the parts list except for this block. Because you don't need to use the block, you can just put the caster right here and be done. All right, so that's fine. Or, you know, creating a little foam block, right? You don't want to bother with that. Use a box of Tic Tacs. In fact, it might be fun to turn your little car into a Tic Tac dispenser. You can run across the room and someone could have a Tic Tac and it'll make a little rattling noise. That could be fun. Or cut a little piece of wood, as I said, or do nothing. All right, so we'll just stick that right there. All right. So we're ready. We're almost ready to do that. Before we do that, what we want to do is take our servo and our wheels, right, and attach the wheel to the servo. And this goes one way. You'll see the wheel has got a place for this little gear on the end, only on one side. You can't put it on the wrong way. All right, so, and that'll press on, you know, wiggle it a little bit, let it find its home, press it straight on. And then with our little screwdriver, we're going to take our little screw and we're going to put that in there and screw it down. Okay, so we want to do that with both wheels, and once we've done that with both wheels, then we can attach them. And the easy way to attach them is this has got a sticky back all the way along it, right? So we want to have all of our parts to put on. Okay, so I'm going to put one of these on and then probably use some double stick tape. These come with stick-ons that you can use. So I'm going to peel away this yellow part, see, and that exposes this white part that is sticky. So I'll be able to stick the motors right on. All right, so I've gone and have attached my caster like so. So I've just put this the block on, and I did some trimming and, you know, a bunch of stuff you don't need to do if you don't want to, and then attach the caster to that with some with the sticker that came with it. But you could use double stick tape. All right, now we want to attach our motors, and we want our motors to put them on the sticky bit. Now I took the yellow off and then I cut it down so I can hold this without it sticking to my thumb. But then I'm just going to press this on. And what you want to do is line it up so that the edge of the servo, the rectangular body of the servo matches the back and side edge of the breadboard as perfectly as possible. You want your wheels to go straight. Okay. And you notice the wires in there. And so on, so forth. And then we do the same with this one. Let's do a better job of that. Okay. It's pretty sticky, so you want to be careful. Be really light. See, I was being so light. I feather lightness. So I've been able to move it around a little bit to get that as straight as I can. And then I'll press it down. All right, and then we'll press it down a little more. And I think this is the nice thing of doing the caster first, because I could just do that. All right, so then we just need to wire our motors. And what we're going to do is we're going to run this servo all the way along here. There's some exposed sticky bit I'll exploit to hold it down. It's a little bit here for this one too, not much, a little bit. Yeah, I'm probably out of camera, so I'm just pressing it down. There's a little sticky there that I got it into, so they're staying in place. I'm going to have to come back and put some tape on that to hold it. All right. Now we can wire our motors. You know, this side is the yellow one, so we'll go yellow to orange. And then power, red to red, black to brown. Okay. Then do the same with this one. It wants to come this way. In this case, we got orange to orange, red to red, black to brown. All right. So I'm going to put some tape on that, but before I do that, I'm going to attach our power source. And you can use any old power bank that fits in this space. Doesn't have to be this one, but I like this one. It came with its own cord, plus it was pink. Pink's a great color. And I'm going to use, just stick a little bit of this on there. And we stick that double stick tape on. Give it a good cut. You notice I didn't have to cover the bottom of this. This is way plenty to hold it in place. All right, so now we take off the plastic backing. And we're gonna put this down. You notice I for this one, there's a power switch, and this is where it charges. So this is where you'll plug in to charge it. So be sure that's exposed, however your power bank is arranged, and that the power button is available. So I liked it that way. And on the side here, it shows the charge level. All right. So we want to be sure, we get this close enough to the ESP32 so that this is a comfortable connection. And that's looking pretty comfortable. So we can just let it drop down. Press it down. Be careful not to mess up your wheels, like I just did. Okay. All right, well, we've done it. All right, so that is assembled. Now we have to load the software. But before I do that, I'm going to tape these up so they are not so wiggling around. Okay, so that's assembled. Then we just have to load our software. What we're going to do now is go to the GitHub page. The link is in the description. And on my GitHub page, you're going to find a number of files. What you're looking for is servocar.ino. If you click on that, you'll get the opportunity to look over the code. The code is very well documented, so if you want to learn how everything is done, I invite you to read that all carefully. Then you're going to download it, and when you download it, then you're going to save it, and you want to save it where you build your Arduino IDE code. So we would save it there. I've already done that. Obviously, it came from there. And so we'll just go ahead and check to be sure my copy's identical to that. And then we'll bring up the Arduino IDE. And once we have the Arduino IDE loaded, we can then go ahead and connect the servo car USB to our computer. And then we want to be sure of two things. We want to be sure we have the right board selected. In this case, it's the XIAO under ESP32C3. You may use a different ESP32 board, but be sure you select exactly your board. And there are a lot of ESP32 boards. So you want to be sure to get exactly the right one. And then the next thing we need to do is select our port. And once we've selected our port, we can just go ahead and load the software into the car. And once that's completed, it is effectively ready to run. And we'll show you how to run it. All right, once that's done that, you should see this LED should start blinking. And if for some reason it's not, and yet everything indicated here there were no compile errors, and let's just double check our output. Okay, everything's fine, right? It wrote it, it verified, and it reset. Right, so everything loaded, so this should be blinking, and if it's not, then check your wiring first. I would unplug, go through every connection, check it against the wiring diagram, and because that's where the problem is. It's really easy to just have one of these pins, off by one hole. That looks the same, but it's not, obviously. All right, so that's what'll be the problem there in all likelihood. Then you don't need to do anything else, no more software for you to do, right? All you need to do is go to my GitHub page, go back to the GitHub page, servocar.html. If you click on that, it'll load it here on my computer, and it tells me this is what I want to type into a web browser on my phone. If I do this on my phone, you can see this is what I have typed in my phone. And if I do that, it brings up this app. And literally that now can talk to the project we just created. Okay, notice when I connect, my green LED didn't come on, right? So I have a little connection issue with my green LED. One thing to check, did you put it in backwards? Which I did. Voila, now my green LED is working. All right, so The red LED is working. Green LED is working. I turned the red LED off. Now let's see about the motors. Up, I pressed forward and it went forward. I pressed reverse and it went reverse. That's a good sign. It's not going to do that unless both servo motors turn. Okay, so I can turn one motor, or I can turn the other motor, or I could turn them both. All right, so it all works. It's very sweet. This app has a record and play feature. So I could say record, do that, stop, and then I can say play. Yep. So you've done it. You've created a servo car that you can run from your phone. And you can build on this, obviously. If you want to change this app, you need your own GitHub account. Go ahead, take my file, load it into your GitHub account, follow the instructions at GitHub for hosting it, and then you'll be able to play with that app and change it. You could add on to the car. Or if you want to do Arduino IDE, change your add features like sensors and all sorts of things, then you just edit this file and build it, and away you go. So you're up and running. Have fun, and be sure to check out my other videos and have fun playing with toy trains and Arduinos. So we are all set to run and play with our toy. And what we're going to do is make sure our motors are stuck down. Just plug this into the ESP32. Notice our LEDs blinking. Plugged in there. Bring up the app. One other thing we can do to add to the fun just a little bit, we can add googly eyes. Yay!